a little bit late getting in here, but we do have one of the House finest here. He just can't get off the telephone. But don't let him feel he wasn't talking to anyone. He's just moving his mouth. I want to vote on your bill. Well, it is so good to see you, Chairman Dixon. And, well, thank you. We're tight. We were. Anyway, I want to hear from you, House Bill 250.
This bill to you and answer your questions. So you're going to get my totally uneducated synopsis of
Okay.
what this bill is about. Sure, there's going to be some folks here to testify on the other side of the equation. So, this bill was brought to me by this law firm in Dalton, who has clients. Happens to be a woman who was a teacher in the school system while I was superintendent. That has nothing to do with her disability now, by the way. But she and her husband are dependent upon her retirement income from TRS. Unfortunately, she is being permanently or totally incapacitated and will be in a nursing home. And when that happens, the bulk of her retirement income will go to Medicaid, and the husband will be close to destitute at that point. The lawyer went to local superior court and asked to have the benefits assigned by court order from the woman to the husband, and the court order was issued, which TRS has chosen to deny. And this bill is designed to allow the assignment of benefits in these very specific circumstances. It does not open it up to anything else other than an instance where you have a member who is incapacitated, and then they can assign the benefits. So I would love to answer questions, but I'd have to refer them to the lawyer who drew the bill.
Okay. Are you asking him to explain it to us?
I'll try to answer a question first.
Oh, okay. All right.
Then he can tell me.
Does anyone? Yes, we do have someone. Representative Beverly.
Medicaid or Medicare.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if we give people the ability to assign their assets, the cost of coverage,
Now,
where does that coverage come from? I'm not sure where we make the difference for those folks who can assign assets over to. The reason I'm asking is I just went through that with my dad, and we had to go through the same thing. We just said we're not going to liquidate any assets. We're going to go ahead and just handle it. But in a lot of cases, that's the only way that people can get it.
right. This doesn't deal with any assets other than their retirement income. They would still have any other assets that were held in common between them, I think would be liable to be seized under the normal procedures. Um, just the retirement benefit.
Here you go. Thank you. All right. Representative Bentley, you have a question?
Just for a point of clarity, I just need to use as an example so I can better understand what we're doing here this afternoon, okay?
Sure.
I have an aunt who's a retired educator, and so I'm just going to use her as an example. If she takes ill and has to be placed in a nursing home, her retirement, am I saying this correctly, her retirement, if her husband wanted to still need the retirement money home with him to take care of their affairs at home, this bill will allow them to do what exactly in that particular scenario? I'm just trying to get a better understanding.
They would they would have the capacity to apply to TRS to assign her retirement benefits to her husband or spouse.
Okay, so it wouldn't have to go to the nursing home, and if she has other means to pay for her care at the nursing home, she can utilize those other means to do that.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So those are only for individuals that are just in a state where they have to have long-term care in a nursing home.
Right. The deal's
So
only
they-
with spousal relationship.
Okay. Spousal relationships. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Representative.
Coach?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, Representative Dickinson, couldn't a will take care of this instead of a bill?
No, because currently none of the retirement systems will allow assignment of benefits.
Okay.
Now, obviously, with TRS and all of those retirement systems, you make some choices when you retire as to whether or not you want to leave a portion of your retirement to the spouse on your death. But that's a wholly different scenario. This is dealing with while the spouse is still alive.
All right. Do we have any other questions?
There is a typographical error in the bill which will need to be corrected. The addition of the letter P on line 14. After 1396, we need to insert a P there to make it a correct reference.
I'm sorry?
P is in Paul.
Yeah.
No, the D
We-
stays there. This is just something that was omitted. I did my best to come up with the right reference
No, I have a question. Do we
from my
need to
extensive background
do
in the
this
law.
as an amendment? Okay, we'll vote on that time comes. All right. Thank you. Have anyone to speak for the bill? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Ezel, the Executive Director of TRS. This bill would do two things. It would allow, as Representative Dixon said, in the case of a spouse, an assignment of retiree's benefit to a spouse, but also in the case where there may just be a child, that would be an assignment of the benefit that's been designated to the child to, I think it's a special needs trust in here. And just in the past 6 months, we've had 2 inquiries, one regarding a child, in this situation, and then another one, regarding the spouse, which I think is the one that Representative Dixon was referring to. I wasn't aware that there was a court order. We're just going by statutory law that the benefit cannot be assigned. The issue I have with the bill, even though this, I'll be honest with you, this tugs at your heart on these circumstances, but what this bill is really doing is hiding assets or hiding the retirement benefit that we're paying from Medicaid eligibility requirements. And I just don't feel the state should encourage that or be involved in hiding assets for qualification purposes for Medicaid. And I'm like Representative Beverly. I'm having a hard time today because I went through this with my dad and I went through this with my mom. And you got certain income levels, and if you exceed those levels, you can't get assistance, and you have to pay for the care yourself. And this just is an attempt for a arguably well-intentioned reason, but to hide assets. And that's all I had to say.
All right, Representative Coomer.
Thank you. Mr. Ezel, just so I can understand a little better, Medicaid is a needs-based program that provides assistance to people who are the people with the least assets, so they can access health care as they need it. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So if we allow people to access these benefits, I understand the law requires that people may have to forfeit their own assets to pay for the benefits they're receiving if they have assets in some cases. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
And so that asset forfeiture is to help pay for the Medicaid program on a broader level. Is that correct?
I would agree.
So if a person is able to keep their assets from being allocated to that Medicaid expense, ultimately it raises the cost of, raises Medicaid costs. Is that correct?
I would agree.
And it also raises, as to Representative Beverly's point, would potentially raise the operating cost for other patients who are paying to receive care in a particular facility.
That would be a reasonable assumption, yes.
Okay. I think that's all my questions.
You have any other questions from the committee? All right, you do have one, Representative Beverly.
Is there a thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a because I'm absolutely sensitive to this bill, and it makes a lot of sense, but I think the downward pressure on the system is what I'm a little concerned about. And then, but is there a number? Is there a percentage that can go? So that maybe you can have, I don't know, 30%, 40% can go to something, and then, to cover the cost, because quite frankly, to your point, it's just not people who don't have means. You could be disabled and get Medicaid if you're under, 62 years old. And so you can have someone who's, sort of well off, they get disabled, and this is the only way that they have to sort of have long-term care. And so they may have substantial assets, but they'll run out very quickly. One of these homes, it can, $600,000 a night. This stuff can run up pretty quickly. And so it depends on the critical care space that you need to be in. So I don't know if there's a number, but is there some way where we can get the spirit of what you're doing without creating sort of downward pressure on the system? And I think that's what I think that's what we're all concerned about. How do we make this work to address your constituent and many Georgians for that matter?
Chairman Dixon, would you like to speak to that?
I can speak in principle to it. I can't speak in specifics. There is a limit to what they take. There is some left of what she would earn. And also, had this been a situation where they both had a retirement income, the husband's larger retirement income would be protected from Medicaid. So it only goes against the assets of the person who's actually in the facility. So there are some limits to it. Now, I will tell you that when they came to me with the bill initially, my first reaction was, what we're talking about doing is trying to do exactly what he just said: shield income so that the state can't seize it or the federal government can't seize it. But I told him I will be glad to have the bill drawn up, and but I also told him if he wasn't here to present it, that we weren't going anywhere with it, and then he failed to show. But you raise excellent questions, and I think it becomes a philosophical question that you've got to answer. Is it do we condone that kind of an action in these very narrow circumstances?
Coach has a question for you.
there will be a cost to the state one way or the other, because if the benefits aren't assigned to the husband, he's going to be eligible for some state aid too. So it's going to cost us either way we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say to Representative Dickinson, you done your job, for your constituents. So,
Yeah.
I commend you for doing that. You done your job.
Yeah. I paid her a good salary when she was working for us.
That is a good thing. Does anyone else would like to speak to this bill? I think it's obvious that we have a number of questions. I do have one question that we've talked about philosophical things. I like to talk about legal things. When we start changing from what is the norm, what is the present path that we are funding, does that call into question some legal problems?
Typically on legislation that appears to just impact a small group of people, typically it's a more larger group ultimately that it could apply to. And and y'all have been very good over the past many years not to do exception type legislation for people, because it's kind of like once you crack open the door, it just gets pushed a little wider and a little wider and wider each time.
Well, thank you. I see that there is not a clear-cut answer to this, and I think that the best thing that we do is we just we take no action on it today, and we work out some of these things. If the gentleman would like to come, maybe next week, if all of these questions that we have an answer to them. Is whether or not we can legally do this, and then whether or not that it is legal. Are we creating an unintentional consequence that we don't have to deal with later on? That's the part that what concerns me.
I mean, I would agree with you to a point. I mean, legislative council is pretty much satisfied that it's legal to do what we're talking about doing. I think there probably is an ethical question, and I'm not sure how I would vote if I was sitting over there on that issue. And I would say that if we delay a week, we basically are saying the bill doesn't go anywhere. And if you choose to handle it that way, that's fine. I don't have a problem with accepting your answer today. I mean, a week from now, we're going to be up against crossover time, and so that bill doesn't move anywhere at that point. It becomes a moot question.
Well, what we're going to do is let the committee have a recommendation as to the direction. I believe that we're a little uncertain about this, and I think I would feel far more comfortable in not moving on this right now.
That's fine.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No opposition to that, then we'll move on. We Chairman Benton is somewhere. That's obvious. He's just where he's not here where. But Representative Hawken is here, and he had his bill prepared, and I believe he's in the process of working with ERS and some others. And we just spoke just a few minutes ago, and we're going to wait until they have had a chance to work out some of the details before he presents the bill. And well, we've got lights going on. Okay, we're just never turn them off. Okay. Anyway, and so thank you Representative Holcomb, and we'll deal with that. I would ask that you would just kind of be at ease just for a few minutes, and hopefully Chairman Benton will be here to make his presentation. If not, then we'll adjourn. But if you could, just for a few minutes, be at ease.